for taking some time out of their evening to come help us with our strategic plan. Today's opening day. I know a lot of you probably had to give up your opening day tickets to be here, and I really appreciate that. I have the pleasure of introducing Councilmember Parkhurst, who will be the moderator for tonight's meeting. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Councilmember Parkhurst.
Thank you, City Manager. Good evening, everyone. So thank you for coming here tonight. So this is the third in a series of town hall meetings designed to solicit input from you in the preparation of the city's strategic plan. Back in June of 2022, the City Council participated in a public meeting along with city staff and a third-party facilitator that was intended to identify goals for the city, update our mission and vision statements, and develop priorities for the city going forward. Coming out of that meeting, city staff put together a summary report to council, and that came to us in late 2022. And the overwhelming feedback that we got at that meeting from the community was that more community input was needed, that the community wanted to give more feedback. So City Council heard that, and we asked city staff to organize these town hall meetings. The first one was back in January, organized by the Fire and Police Department. The second one was earlier this month, organized by Library and Community Services. Tonight, we're going to hear from IT, Administrative Services, Human Resources, Finance, and the Planning Department. Our next, and I believe our final meeting, will be in May, organized by the Water and Public Works. There's a flyer in the bags in the back that you'll receive or that you have received when you checked in. So our hope tonight is to gather feedback from you that will help us make a thoughtful strategic plan. This is coming in and out. I apologize for that. I'm trying to hold it the same spot the whole time. But thank you for attending tonight. Your participation is really valuable to both the City Council and City staff. And with that, I am going to turn it over to IT Manager Oscar Milan to give us the first presentation. Oscar, you're up.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. You know, IT doesn't get a lot of chances to speak in front of the public. We're kind of in the background, and you know, so long as IT is doing their job, they kind of become invisible. You only hear about IT when there's problems or where something's not working. So I think this is a very unique opportunity for me to interact with all of you and really tell you a little bit about the department. So thank you for that. So I also want to introduce Christian Delgado. He's our senior network administrator, who is my right-hand man, and none of this would be possible without him. So I also want to acknowledge him. So what does IT do? The way that I look at it is that IT empowers staff to utilize technology to streamline everyday operations. And this can range all the way from a simple help desk request all the way up to network engineering and network support, as well as any system down events that happen throughout the organization, either to a dropped internet service connection or any other cloud services that we manage and support. One of the other really big aspects of IT that's come front and center has to do with cybersecurity. There's a lot of work being done at Sierra Madre with cybersecurity, and I'll get a little bit more into that throughout the presentation, but this is a ever-changing field that is simply a cat and mouse game between the good guys, the internal staff in IT, and the bad guys who are constantly evolving to attack in very complex and interesting ways. So first, I want to start off by talking a little bit about the teams that we do support citywide. IT supports this organization, our organization, and despite our small size, we have a very complex, or the full complexity of a larger organization, right? So we have a full-service police department, full-service fire department. We also support all of City Hall operations, which of course manages things like our financial system, our building and planning permitting system, as well as many other systems. And we also have a full service library. The library is complex in the sense that it does have not just the internal network that we have to manage and support, but we have a public-facing network that folks can come in and utilize our computer systems to do research or look up any number of items that they need to do for either school or work or what have you. We also have a city yard, which is a water utility operation. Our city yard is very important because of our water assets. It is a full-scale utility, and you might have heard in the news that water departments are a prime target because there is a public safety component to water quality, and as such, it does carry a certain importance to make sure that it's secure and safe. And I'm very proud to announce that the city yard and the water utility operation was the first advanced network segmentation deployment that we did in the city, and we hope to take these same strategies and deploy them citywide. I also want to talk a little bit about, and there's another slide that's coming up about the future public safety building, and I should also mention besides the public safety building, we also have a brand new library that we're trying to build, and IT will be at the forefront of making sure that we're deploying the best and the greatest as far as security, but also building out the infrastructure and the data centers that are required to make all of this happen. And then lastly, this is how COVID has changed our world. It's probably accelerated remote work by at least 5 years. And Sierra Madre was at the forefront of allowing remote work possible through VPN technologies and allowing the workforce to continue to do really good work from anywhere in the world during COVID. And now we're currently continuing to do that and reinforcing that capability. So IT is lucky also in the sense that we can be in the background, but we have some very public-facing projects. And perhaps one of the biggest has to do with our current Wi-Fi deployments. I'm sure many of you have taken advantage of these services. We started at the Sierra Madre Library, and let me say that the way that we have built this out has been very strategic. Whenever we were able to bring or light up a circuit, a fiber internet connection that was high quality and reliable, we also immediately looked at setting up Wi-Fi in its proximity. So the very first fiber circuit that we deployed was at the library, and as soon as that came online, we started to broadcast it via Wi-Fi. And just moving down the list, the same was true for Memorial Park, where we deployed fiber at City Hall. And Christine Court is in the works. We have a very innovative way that we turned up that circuit, and it's simply through a pair of 4G LTE and 5G antennas that are servicing Christine Court. We do hope to have fiber there. It's a little bit of a tricky situation because of the conduits that are in place, but we're going to make it better. And then as far as future locations, we're looking at Sierra Vista Park. And this is, again, because in our water utility, we've upgraded to a fiber line that allows this to happen. At Christine Court, we've also deployed a kiosk, and it's a way to broadcast information, and the power in that is that we can update information live, and we can very quickly send out bulletins, whether it be for emergencies or any information about, let's say, this town hall meeting or any other events that we're trying to broadcast, and we are going to be using that quite a bit. And then the last thing, this is something that I'm also very proud of, is that when the pandemic hit, we were very proactive about broadcasting meetings on Zoom and allowing public participation. And one of the requests that came in through our administration and the team was that we were really trying to make public participation a priority. And we heard that call, and I think we did a fantastic job of not only broadcasting these meetings, but as far as I know, we were the only city that, at least in the Sagredo Valley, perhaps even beyond, that not only took public comment through Zoom, but also allowed public participation of council at the same time, which again, I did not see anybody else doing this. And I know because I tried to see what other cities were doing, and I couldn't find one. So we just made it happen. And I also want to briefly touch on a couple internal projects. This is not by any means a complete list, but just some of the things that are up and coming that are important. And again, this is the short list. So first, the next generation 911. The state of California is upgrading the 911 systems in the entire state, and Sierra Madre is taking steps to make sure that we work closely with the state of California and Cal OES to make this happen. In line with that, a lot of PSAP or 911 dispatch centers are upgrading to cloud services, and that's something that we're actively looking into. It'll be better service, more reliable, and more robust. So we're really looking forward to that. And I had mentioned this in a previous slide, the new library and police data centers. And this is perhaps the first opportunity that I will have to build a data center from the ground up, which is a very unique opportunity. And thus far, we've basically retrofitted closets, we've taken basement room, and we haven't had a really good opportunity to build something in terms of a data center from the ground up. So this is a very exciting and unique opportunity that we have to do it right and really build something that is going to serve us well for the next decade, let's say. So I'm very excited about that. And as I mentioned earlier, security is an ongoing a battle for IT. What I'd like to get to at some point is automated response to incidents, where even if IT is sound asleep at 3 in the morning and we have an event, our systems are intelligent and smart enough to either close off points of entry or attacks that are found through our firewalls or any number of segmented parts of our network, and all of this being programmed and done ahead of time. So more of a proactive self-response until obviously a human being can look behind a computer and then take further action. We're also looking at digitizing permit processing and really digitizing most of the services at City Hall. We do have some challenges in that we have some legacy systems that need to be upgraded, such as perhaps our building and permitting is a great example, that are required to be upgraded first before we can digitize some of these things, but we're actively looking at ways to make this happen. And then the network redesign, this is the same strategy that we deployed at the city yard at the water operation in order to just harden our security posture and make sure that we keep the bad guys out. It's a little bit harder to do and certainly more work to maintain, but the payoff is that it makes it much harder for the bad guys to really do any serious damage to your network. And if they do get in, they're segmented to just a portion of it instead of the entire network itself. And then looking into the future, being an IT guy and an engineer, I think a lot about AI and what the future holds. And I've said to anybody who will listen that the next 5 to 10 years, we will see more change than the previous 100. And it's a scary time. It's an exciting time. I tend to be cautiously optimistic about AI. And with any technology, it can be used for good and bad. But this is happening faster than I think most of us realize. And then the last thing, if anybody is interested in AI, there's a book that I would recommend, and it's called The Singularity is Near by Ray Kurzweil. And it's a great book. It's not a heavy read, and it's for everyday people, not just IT guys like me. And with that wraps up my presentation. We do have a couple of questions for all of you. We do have a little bit of information about the usage of our Wi-Fi, but we'd like to know, one, are you using it? And do you even know that it's there? And which Wi-Fi access point are you utilizing the most? That's one of the first questions. And then the second question is, what type of message do you want to see at Kirstein Court in our digital display? So those are our two questions, and that's my presentation.
So now this is open for you guys to ask questions. James has got a mic here that he can run up to you. So you got a mic that he can run to you. So if anyone, this is where we want your feedback and get your thoughts on Oscar's presentation.
Thank you. Very thorough presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Did an excellent job.
Thank you.
I have a simple question. You mentioned in the future it's going to be a new library. What is the location of the new library?
I believe it's the same location. It's just going to be a retrofit of the existing library.
Wonderful, thank you.
No problem.
Um, I just better speak louder. It just strikes me that these questions are not exactly strategic. It seems to me the strategic question is this. If you were starting a digital city hall now, what would it look like? And how would one plan to implement it? What we're doing, which is good and right and proper, is take existing functions and digitizing them. But that's, the strategic question is, should we be looking at things the other way around? There are some countries, Lithuania being strangely a very good example, where they have reconfigured the whole of government by starting with the digital question. What are we trying to achieve? How do we do so? And that to me is a strategic question for the city. How do we not just digitize what we have, but re-engineer our whole city hall based on the fact that in the next 5 years, as you said, things are going to change more than the last 100 years. That's the strategic question.
Yep, I agree 100%. I don't have much to add to that, except that if we were to re-engineer City Hall to become digital, the way that I would begin to kind of flesh that out and make that happen would be with an enterprise resource planning system. So it would basically be a complete redo of all the software systems that we have, which would then have all the ties to digitize every aspect of City Hall, right? Much more complex to do that. It's ripping off the Band-Aid, more money, more downtime, presumably. And I think that's the challenge with most organizations, is that it is such a tremendous change, and it requires so much capital and resources to make that happen, that I think many local governments struggle with that. So I would love the budget for that. I would love.
That's the strategic question. Do we give you the budget to do something radical and bold?
Yeah.
Do we do conventional business? Strategic question.
Yeah, fair enough. That's a great question. Thank you for that. Thank you again for your time.
All right, so thank you, Oscar, for that. Next, we have Deputy City Manager Laura Aguilar, who's going to talk about the Administrative Services Department.
Thank you, Councilmember Parkhurst. Today, I get to speak to you all about our Administrative Services Department, which really encompasses a number of different divisions. The Administrative Services Department is consisting of me as your Deputy City Manager, but also your City Clerk. We have a Deputy City Clerk, Amber Tardif, who's here. And between Amber and I, we handle all the City Clerk functions, which are City Council meetings, commissions, agenda packets, meeting minutes, elections. We do filings for conflict of interest filings with the state. And so all that is handled in the City Clerk's office. The next position that we have in our department is utility billing. We have one utility billing specialist. That's Susan Clifton. Many of you already know Susan. She's homegrown, so a lot of you have had experience dealing with Susan. And lastly, our newest member of our team is Ernie Villa. Ernie is our communications coordinator. We haven't had a communications coordinator in the city for some time, and so this has presented a challenge because sometimes when we have information that's timely or required or necessary, it's not coming out in a timely manner. And so the role of the communications coordinator really is to get the information out to the public that's timely, that's relevant, that's informative. And so this is the team that we are working with, and the four of us managed all these roles together. For utility billing, our utility billing specialist manages just over 3,800 utility accounts. So that's homes, businesses, churches, schools. She manages the billing for all of those on a monthly basis. Of those 3,800 bills, about a third of them, so 1,000, just a little over 1,000, are paperless, which means 2,800 bills have to get printed every month and mailed out to Sierra Madre homes. And that's a lot of postage, right? So we encourage our residents to please sign up for electronic billing, paperless billing. It just is a matter of providing your email. The benefits to receiving this paperless email or paperless bill is that you'll get it in your email right away. So if you're on vacation, if you're out of the country, if you're traveling, if you're visiting your grandkids, if you're at a graduation for your daughter or your son, then you don't have to worry about your mail piling up. You have paperless billing. And so we strongly encourage everyone to look to see if this makes sense for your situation and enroll in paperless billing. One of the other things that I'm pretty proud of is our delinquent accounts. Now, 5 years ago, when we started reorganizing our utility billing account, we had over $100,000 in delinquent accounts. What that means is we had accounts that weren't paying their bills for whatever reason, or they had moved out and left a balance, and a lot of the accounts were delinquent. And so one of our goals was to work with our account holders to try to remedy that. We've reached out to them, we make phone calls, and we're not bill collectors, and we really don't want to be bill collectors. The phone calls we're making are really more to ask, what can we do for you? How can we help you? What resources do you need? Do you need more time? Do you need a payment arrangement? Do you need us to look and see if maybe there are alternatives or options? I'm happy to report that since we've started this program in helping to reduce the delinquent accounts, we have gone down from over $100,000 to about $25,000 in delinquent accounts. Still a large number, but significantly less than where we were 5 years ago. And that's through our customer service, our commitment to working with the residents, with the businesses, to reduce those costs and to be in a much healthier state within our finances. Just to give you an idea, in January of last year, we had over 50,000 delinquent accounts. Our utility specialist, Susan, worked with accounts. We managed to enroll 22 accounts into our payment arrangements, meaning we worked with them to see how much they could afford to pay, and then we set up payment arrangement plan to help them get caught up on their bills. From that 54,000, almost 55,000 in January, we reduced it to 25,000 in December, which I think is a significant drop. It's a little more than half. So I'm pretty proud of that. I'm proud that the residents have been receptive, that our city staff remains committed to working with the residents and to try to keep the costs down so that we can keep our financial utility accounts pretty stable. And so and another thing that I wanted to mention, one of the other things that we did through the support of the water district is we were able to ask them if there were any grants available. And one of the reasons that we were able to get the funding down so much is because we were awarded more than once, twice, we were awarded grants from the water district that helped us help our residents bring down their costs. And in some cases, we had, especially during COVID, we had a lot of school teachers that weren't working and they couldn't afford to pay their water bill, or they were supplementing their income as waitresses or waiters, food servers. They were supplementing their income through tutoring, and they didn't have those availabilities anymore. And so we saw a huge spike during the COVID years of delinquent accounts. through no fault of their own, they were just circumstances that they were. We were able to reach out and partner with the water district, and the water district offered grants that many of our account holders and nonprofit organizations were able to benefit from, and we were able to help those accounts bring down the delinquents in their account, which I feel provided them some financial relief during a very difficult time. So really it is our goal and our commitment to continue working with our partners in town, our residents, our business owners, our nonprofit leaders, to really work towards keeping the lights on and the water on and running, so to speak. So this is, let's see, this is the slide that demonstrates the payment arrangements. We had 22 payment arrangements. This is the slide I was just talking about. And one of the tools that we use for utility billing is AMI. So I won't touch too much on AMI because that's probably something that the water department will focus on when they do their presentation in May. But AMI is a water conservation tool, and I don't think it was intended to be a water conservation tool, but it is a good water conservation tool, because enrolling in AMI gives the account holder an opportunity to see real-time use on their water usage. When we were first rolling this out, I love this story because when we were first rolling this out, we had a resident who was traveling. He was a school teacher, and he was in Europe for the summer with his kids and his wife, and they were backpacking through Europe. And he was one of our test cases, and he was enrolled in AMI, and he was happened to be checking his AMI account, and the water usage his bill was triple. And he panicked, and he called his neighbor, and he said, "My water usage is ridiculous." And he said, "Oh, you have a broken sprinkler in your backyard." He's in Europe. What's he gonna do, right? So immediately, they were able to get work done. They shut off the water. He didn't have to worry about it flooding his backyard for a month. Can you imagine the bill he would have come back to had he not had that AMI app installed or email installed? And so for that purpose, I'm a big fan of AMI because it is proven to be a cost savings to so many of our residents. Enrolling is easy. You just have to know what your account number is and your last billed account. There are some flyers in your bags that look like this. They're conservation flyers, but it does have the address to the AMI portal. I encourage all of you, if you haven't already, to please enroll into the AMI portal so that you're aware. It'll give you an email indication if there is a problem with your account or a potential problem with your account. One of the indicators of a possible leak could be that there's usage when we're sleeping. When we're sleeping, we're not watering, we're not using but if the water is continuing to work or to run, then it's an indicator of a leak, and that will cause the water billing, the utility bill, to go up. So I encourage anybody who is not already enrolled in AMI to please do so, because it does have the potential to save you money and to save a lot of heartache later. Okay. Now, in the city clerk's office, where Amber and I are working, one of the functions of the city clerk's office is to put agenda packets together for the city council meetings. The city council meetings the regular meetings are twice monthly, on the 2nd and on the 4th Tuesday of every month. There are agenda packets, agenda reports that are prepared in advance of those meetings, and the city council reads the reports for all of those meetings in advance. And so it is Amber's and Roberta, who works in the city manager's office, role to assemble all those reports, to receive all those reports from city upper management, and to put them together. And it could be 10 to 15 reports every 2 weeks. And so in a regular year, we could have at least 20 council meetings. Last year, in 2022, we had 40 city council meetings. That's 40 regular meetings, closed session meetings, and special meetings. That's 40 times that the city council met to discuss city business, that the city clerk's office put together agenda packets and agendas for those meetings. One of the other functions of the city clerk's office are public records requests. Anytime a member of the public wants access to inspect or review or have copies of city records, it is city clerk's office that provides that access and those copies. So just to give you an idea, we could have a Public Records Act for a request for a copy of a permit. I'd like to have a copy of a permit. I'm getting ready to buy this house, and I want to know if this addition was permitted. That is a typical request that we receive. That is not a difficult request to honor, so we are able to do that pretty quickly. Some of our other more time-consuming requests are when we receive a request from a member of the public that says, I would like to see all correspondence from the last 3 years between the city and the county of Los Angeles. And so a request like that could take us months to process because we have to go through emails, we have to go through letters, we have to go through files for over whatever period of time that they've designated. And so a request like that could take weeks or months sometimes. Just to give you an idea, last year the city clerk's office received on average 1 request per day. That's about 20 requests a month, or about, and in actuality, we got 250 requests last year for the entire year that we processed. So that's one of the functions of, one of the other functions of the city clerk's office. And then I think it's the most interesting because we're doing them so often now, are elections. City clerk's office handles elections for the city. What does that entail? In a regular election cycle, an election cycle is about 6 months. A lot of people think that election day is it. But in reality, an election cycle begins in July and it ends in December. Because what we have to do is we accept nominations. So if somebody in the public wants to run for office, they come to the city clerk's office, they receive a packet of documents, including nomination papers, and then they have their residents, voters, other voters in town, sign their nomination into either city council or city treasurer, whatever elected office they're running for. The city clerk's office also handles the financial filings, also known as FPPC forms. The FPPC is the Fair Political Practices Commission. They're stationed in California, in Sacramento, California. And so it is the city clerk's job or function to receive those filings. There's deadlines, regular deadlines. We receive those filings and we either file them in-house or file them with the state, depending on what form they are. We also manage campaign oversight. If there's some electioneering that's appropriate or inappropriate, we monitor that. Voter registrations and changes. If anybody is not a registered voter, I encourage you to please register to vote. 1 vote does make a difference. I can attest to that. We also put together the voter information guide. So when you are ready to vote in the mail, you'll get a booklet or a pamphlet that describes all the voters or all the candidates, all the ballot measures, all the information related to the election. That's what we put together. The city, both Amber and I, work together with the county to put those voter information guides out to the public. And then we also do voter assistance. So part of that is identifying voting centers. The city will be having a special election in May of this year. The vote centers that are still being finalized, but are pretty finalized, will be at the former Bank of America building, which is which will be the new police department, and at the Parkhurst. The vote centers will be open for 10 days, which will impact some of the programming at the Parkhurst, but because we needed to locate a suitable place that was ADA accessible. Those were the 2 sites that we were able to identify. So the 2 vote centers in town, in addition to the vote drop box here at City Hall, will be the former Bank of America building and the senior center of the Parkhurst. And just to give you an idea of in November 2022, we had, for election season, we had 1 citizen's petition. We had one ballot initiative, and we had 3 seats for city council. And that was for the November election. The beauty of a November, an election of having, it's called a regular election. So the beauty of having a regular election is it's a scheduled election, which means it's scheduled at the same time as other agencies, which means we can cost share. So if there is an election that is a regular election and Pasadena's having the same election, anybody in Los Angeles County, could be Linwood, it could be Duarte, anyone in any agency in Los Angeles County who is having an election on the same day, we can all piggyback on each other to reduce costs. So for the November 2022 election, the estimated cost, we haven't gotten the bill yet, but we should be getting it any day now. It was about $125,000 to $150,000. For a special election, it's a little different, because if we're able to piggyback with another agency, then we share the cost with that agency, and it could affect the cost of the election. But if we don't have the ability to piggyback with another agency and share the cost, then we bear the financial burden on our own. Every agency, every city agency is required and obligated to pay that bill. And so the estimated cost for the special election in May does not take into account any shared costs, because there are no other agencies holding an election at that time. In fact, no other agencies holding an election as it stands today for the rest of this year. And so the cost is just going to be borne by Sierra Madre only, and that cost will be between $300,000 and $400,000. So quite a difference between a regular election and a special election, especially if we're not able to share the cost with other agencies. Another function of the city clerk's office is to manage the commissions and oversee commissions, not manage, but oversee commissions. We have 5 commissions. All 5 commissions report and advise the city council. There are 2 types of commissions. There's an advisory and a legislative. In Sierra Madre, the 5 that we have are the Planning Commission, Community Services Commission, the Library Board of Trustees, Natural Resources Commission, and the 5th one is the Senior Community Commission. Of those 5, the Planning Commission is the only legislative body. The rest of them are advisory. So the Planning Commission can make changes to the municipal code without having to go to the city council, although they usually do. But the other bodies are just advisory and only provide recommendations to the city council. And so the reason that the city council relies so heavily on those commissions is because they do all the work. They do all the background, all the research, they take public comment from the public, they put all the thought, they ask all the questions, they get into the nitty-gritty and the weeds of it, and then once they are able to come up with a good, solid recommendation, then they take it to the city council and say, City Council, here's our recommendation. Based on all the feedback from the community, based on our research, based on input from city staff, this is what we think is the best option. And then the city council holds another meeting to then get more input from the public before an action is taken. And that's why the role of the commissions is so important. It should be noted that being on a commission is a labor of love, because there is no payment to serve as a commissioner. It's a volunteer, 100% volunteer act, and we value our commissioners for their expertise and for their time. We have 3 vacancies coming up on July 1st. We have 2 vacancies on the Community Services Commission. We have a commissioner here from the Community Services Commission, and I only see the one, Commissioner Bartlett, and I can tell you that it is absolutely a labor of love, because you are serving your community and not getting paid for it in money, but you're getting paid for it in other ways. So if you are interested in applying for one of those commissions, please reach out to me, reach out to Amber or one of the council members. We would be so happy to have you come out and apply for one of those vacancies. 2 on the Community Services Commission and 1 on the Natural Resources Commission. And lastly, our other major function in the Administrative Services Department is our communications with the city residents, with the businesses. We do this through our emergency communication vehicle, which is Nixle. If you haven't already signed up for Nixle, I encourage you all to sign up. There are various ways to receive the emergency communications. Nixle will email you or text you the information, the emergency information. Some of the information that we send out, for example, could be there is an accident, a traffic accident, please avoid the area. There is police are looking for a suspect in the area of whatever area, please avoid the area. There is a missing child, there is a missing adult. These are the types of communications. When we had Bobcat Fire, we provided Nixle updates saying, here's the status of the fire. So it becomes really important to receive these emergency communications that are sent out not only by the police department, but from the fire department, but also from City Hall staff. And so if you're not already enrolled in Nixle, I encourage you all to please sign up. We also are we have a very big presence in social media. We have Instagram, our fire department, our police department, our public works department, library, community services, City Hall are all on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and the library alone is on TikTok. So I don't anticipate really any other accounts, but the library has fun with the TikTok account. And then also our other resource for communication is the Village View electronic newsletter. If you sign up for the Village View, you get a new electronic newsletter in your email box twice a month. It's usually the Friday before the council meeting. There's information there about community events. There's information about resources. There's information about information. So if you are not already enrolled in these services, I encourage you to please sign up. And if you need assistance signing up, I'd be happy to speak to you, or one of our members of the staff could also help you with that. And that concludes my report. I have a couple of questions I'd like to ask the public, but before I ask my questions, do you all have any questions of me?
You mentioned how to get on for voting. How do you get my question is, you said we could get on to vote. My question is, how do we get off to vote? Because my two daughters have graduated and they're no longer at home. How do we get them off the voting list? Because I don't want you guys to keep sending things to me, because it's a lot of stuff and they're not there.
That is a great question, and I'm glad you asked it. Every voter, if they move out of Sierra Madre, has a responsibility to change their address or update their address. I think it's pretty funny that the county says if the voter moves or dies, it's their responsibility, because I don't know how that's possible. But definitely if you're moved, it's the voter's responsibility to update their address with LA County, and it's very simple. You sign on to lavote.net and you can make that change. There are also some forms in our lobby. I just did it. And if you fill out a form in the lobby, you can just put your new address in and mail it out to the county, and you don't have to put postage. It's very easy. Thank you for that question.
Can I do it for my daughters, or do they have to do it?
They have to do it because it requires their signature. Yes, thank you.
Julie, I have a question about the utility billing. So what do you do with the delinquent accounts? So the money that hasn't been paid, it looks like it's about $25,000. So what is their legal recourse for that?
We looked at a number of options. Thank you for that question. We did look at a number of options, including collections. In a lot of cases, collections were not very helpful, because we found that people don't respond well to the tactics that are used by collection agencies. And not that we're opposed to them, they have their purpose and their need. What we decided to do instead, because we felt that we could offer the same service, but with a little more customer service in mind. And so when Susan began chipping away at the delinquent accounts, as I said, they were over 100,000. It was compassion, and it was a genuine desire to help that really helped us get these payments down. So it's not a perfect system. We've really have chipped down at it, and it's at $25,000 now, but we don't anticipate that it will remain there. We are still working actively with the community. We make phone calls, and our phone calls aren't, when are you gonna pay? Our phone calls are you okay? What can we do to help you with this payment? And so really, it's just a way of humanizing the experience. We wanted more, and maybe that makes us the Sierra Madre personnel or staff control freaks, because we're very protective of our residents. And we want to make sure that they're getting that human element. And you see that across the board with our police department, our fire department, right? You see that across the board. So for us, it was really important that our residents were treated with respect. And so we decided to keep that service in-house. And for us, we've seen where it's made a difference.
I thought we have 5,500 households in Sierra Madre, so how come we only have 3,800 utility customers?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Gordon. Some of the households are sharing a meter. And so the utility bills represent the meter service and not necessarily the occupancy per home. And so when you see the 3,800, it's really, and it's not just homes, the 3,800, the city, some of those accounts are the city's accounts, some of those accounts are business accounts, some of those accounts are the institutional or the schools. And so a lot of those accounts share a meter, and you also have like homeowners associations, for example, that may be 10 or 20 homes, dwellings, but they are on 2 or 3 meters. And so that's why there's a difference. Yes, we have another question in the back.
Of water billing?
Yes.
Very curious how we can justify the current tariff structure. Looking at my own bill, looking over the last 18 months, average usage has been anywhere between under 750 gallons, which equals 0 units, to as much as 1,400 gallons, so almost 2 units. Yet I'm paying $100 a month. This is like 2.5 orders of magnitude higher than any of my other utility bills. And our usage represents very stringent conservation efforts in light of the long-term aridification of our landscape and the necessity for all of us to protect our water resource. I've been living in town long enough where I remember when we had well water. And I'm convinced, I'm of the opinion that we could return to well water if we were able to operate in a model that was sustainable and it's doable with certain changes. However, current utility tariff structure is profoundly, deeply regressive. We talk about billing, we talk about taxation. What we mean by regressive is you have a billing or a tax structure where the lowest, the least income, the most frugal users are paying a disproportionately large proportion of the costs relative to the heavy users. That's called regressive. And we don't have regressive taxation in modern societies. We always strive for progressive taxation and progressive billing. Lots of models of how to do that. Here in the state of California, like all the states in the United States, we prorate vehicle registration. And it is for the same express intention. A lot of the cost of the water billing is for infrastructure. Same thing with vehicle registration. The big difference is I'm driving a tiny little super economy car, and you guys are charging me, and I've compared at least 20 or 30 bills here in town with my clients, and in some cases it's 4, 5, 6 orders of magnitude greater rate per gallon compared to these high-use customers. And this is supposed to support our objectives for conservation.
Thank you for that question. I can speak to it generally. Lucky for us, our city manager is here who could probably speak to it more specifically. I will tell you that you are right. There are a lot of charges on our utility bills that are not only water usage. There are infrastructure charges on there that the city made, and the city council made the decision to put on there because that can had been kicked down the road for so many years, to the point where the city didn't have sustainable infrastructure anymore. The water leaks that the city was experiencing we were buying water, and more than a third of it we were losing. And so the city council made the difficult decision to not kick it down anymore, but to say, we have to do something now. Unfortunately, that translates to infrastructure charges that are on our water bills.
It's a flat tax mentality, which is deeply regressive.
Well,
It's just not consistent with our objectives here of conservation.
What I'd like to do is, if maybe I could take your information and we can talk after the meeting.
so this is our city manager, Jose Reynoso. His background before he was city manager was in utilities and the utility infrastructure and providing water. So you could not find a better resource to talk to, is what I'm saying. I do have a couple of questions that I'd like to ask the community if there are no more questions from the community. Yes, Dr. Patzer.
Now that you've invested in the AMI technology and the information, did you ever consider that the information could be used, for instance, example you gave where there's an extreme leak, you could send out an alert, for instance, over your nickel system or Facebook or something, or also just provide general information about some people might have leaks that they're not aware of just because of the time of the day. So in other words, you can use that system to provide an awful lot of feedback to all the customers, and we could probably save an awful lot of water.
And you're right, and that's exactly what it does. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because the AMI portal is designed to provide alerts and notifications for more than normal usage by the account holder, which is why I'm such a supporter of this system. If you have a leak or a potential leak or something weird is happening, we had a resident who didn't have a leak, but had a lot of water running. Well, their kid had left the water hose on and been running for a week.
Yeah.
And that wasn't a leak. That was just a running water hose. So that's why the AMI portal is so important.
But what I'm saying is there should be some software that would essentially flag it.
That's it. That's the software.
Automatically.
Dr.
Yeah.
Patzer,
Yeah.
if I may add, so what we do is we monitor the AMI system. Our staff generates reports, and we look for the leaks. And our water department staff will go out and hang door tags on
Courtesy
residential
hangers,
avenues.
yeah.
That's what Oscar was talking about. That's part of AI, you know.
Right.
The software is going to do it for you automatically.
One of the beauties of the system is that in the past, we would read the meters every 2 months. So if somebody had a leak, it could go for 60 days before it's notified. Now we read meters and you get your bills on a monthly basis. Yeah. And in between, we monitor the system and we run a report. And if we find any accounts that have leaks, then we'll proactively go out and inform the residents.
Yeah. And
Yeah, so we have taken steps like the AMI, going from bills every 2 months to monthly. There are changes that we've made that have helped bring down and conserve water, that have helped reduce bills, and that help with delinquencies. Yeah. They don't seem like big changes, or maybe they are big changes because they affect how you pay your bills every month, but they're gradual changes that have made big impacts. I do have a couple questions in the interest of time because I know we've got to keep moving forward with the other departments and I'm hogging all their time. My question that I'd like to ask is, are we reaching you? Is City Hall reaching you? Are you receiving information about our events, our programming, emergency notifications? And if we're not reaching you, why not? What is it that we could be doing to reach you? Yes.
Simple one. We desperately need a municipal calendar feed. We need a RSS feed. We need a Google Calendar or some other shared calendar that people can subscribe to that will be updated. And I assure you, there's a lot of us out there that are going to be able to actually have a much greater involvement in our democracy if we have that. We're going to have a richer voice and a better representation of the intentions of the electorate.
Okay. Any other suggestions? Okay.
I think I want to say, as far as the water bill and people having leaks or whatever, as a proactive for the city, that's not loud enough, that if you see something for like 3 days that's outrageous, that you call the people and say, hey,
Yes.
you know, a lot of people aren't paying attention to AMI. They don't have no clue about it and don't want to watch it. You know, they just get their bill, and by the time they get their bill, it's outrageous. But if you be proactive as a city and have it monitored that 3 days, hey, this thing's been off the chart, we need to call them.
We do check it once a month in between billing to just, if we run a report, city staff runs a report for unusual uses or unusual consumption is what it's called. And so if we see somebody come up that is not typically on this report, we'll go and hang a door hanger. Staff will go out and they'll say, hey, we've noticed that you're running, your water bill's running a little higher than usual. You may want to take a look at that. Now, because it is a private account, private property account, we're not allowed to go in and figure out where the water is leaking, but we do make every attempt to notify the account holder that there might be a problem.
Well, that's just like saying you said the kid left the hose on.
Yeah.
3 days, you guys are like, hey, you're using blah, blah, blah. Should be something automatically set up in your system, data system, to flag, hey, this thing's been on 3 days, they're out of town, nobody knows.
Yeah, and this is why AMI is so great, because if you're signed up for AMI, you'll get an alert. It'll say, hey, check something's up. And not in those exact words, but you'll receive a notification that'll say unusual activity or excessive water, take a look. Right. Which is, again, why I encourage AMI. I'm a big supporter of it because I've seen it work. I've seen people's water bills impacted by water leaks, and this is a very useful tool.
I use it, so I know, but for other people who don't. Yeah. Anyway.
I live in a townhouse complex, so can every unit sign up for the AMI?
It's per account. The AMI, the question is, can every unit in a multi-unit, like a townhouse, sign up for AMI? And the answer is, it's per account. So whoever is managing the account would have to sign up and they would receive the alerts.
Like a management company?
Yes, like a management company or a HOA president. Sometimes it's the HOA treasurer who receives, but it would be that one, whoever's responsible for paying the utility account.
One more question.
And it's not a question, it's just a thank you. I really like your Village View City newsletter. It's well done, and I feel like I'm staying in touch with what's going on in the city. So I really do like that one.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, so I think the next question was an AMI question, and I think we've already answered it. Yes.
So, I'll answer your question. This is my first city council, well, not even city council meeting, first town hall meeting. I found you through Instagram, so that was working for me.
Oh, good. Thank you.
My question is about AMI. It sounds like you've covered a lot, but is that information portable? Can that be used like in a smart home application or some other way we can monitor it as opposed to like having to log in to the AMI account?
Do you mean an app?
Yeah, like I have a home kit set up, and I could monitor my thermostat. I can monitor, data, but it would have to be ported in from that.
Yeah, the question would be like, is there an API for it? And what's the polling interval for the data? Is it actually a useful polling interval?
I can.
We can action that. In other words, within the hour or something like
So the AMI is not an app. It's an account that you would log in, but you would receive an alert via email that's telling you there is higher than normal usage on your account. And when you receive that alert, you can log into your account through.
Let me expand a little bit. So what you do is you go on, it's a web address, you enter your information, and then you go to a customer portal. So on the customer portal, it'll have your meter information, your home address, it'll chart your usage, and then you can set up notifications for emails if you have a leak over, or if your average usage for the month is 2 units and it goes to 3 units, I want to be notified. If I have if my meter continuously runs for more than 24 hours, I want to be notified. So there's a bunch of check marks that you can check, and then it will email you. But there is a dedicated website that you'll log into, and it's a customer portal that has all the information, historical use, daily use. The meter is read hourly, and all that information is uploaded a couple of times a day, so it's near real-time data for you to have.
I understand that, but I'm just wondering if that can be exported to another service. I'm checking my HomeKit data daily, sometimes hourly, but AMI, I log in there when I pay the bill, and that's about it.
I think the only thing that you can do is export the data like in an Excel format. You might be able to do that.
You can also get a third party, there's something called Flume, F-L-U-M-E, that will actually connect to that. We'll talk to you.
Okay, we have time for one more question. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, the young lady in the back was waiting patiently. Nixle is the city's emergency alert system, yes. We do have a radio station. We haven't been active on it lately, but we're looking to change that in the next 3 to 6 months. The subscription for Nixle is based on your preferences. So if you prefer to receive the messages by email, you can set it up that way. If you prefer to receive them by text message, you can also request that as an and or as an or. So I personally receive my Nixles by email and by text message. And Nixle allows you to receive alerts not just from Sierra Madre, but you can also receive alerts from other agencies like LA County. And I've signed up for Nixle, and I get alerts from other agencies. So you can get them by text message or by email, however you subscribe. Yes, to answer your question, yes, Channel 3 can be used for government, for emergencies. And you're right, it hasn't been. And we have found that everyone carries their cell phone, so using a cell phone is a lot more reliable and a lot more accessible. Not everyone is at home watching Channel 3, but almost everyone is carrying their cell phone with them. So we found that that's a much more reliable and a lot more quicker method to really interact with our residents. Thank you for your questions. Okay. I will. That's useful feedback. So I will take it back to our communications team and see what changes we can make to make it more relevant. Thank you. Mr. Gordon, did you have the final question?
Yes. You, I think, has 800 subscribers, something like that.
I believe there are a little more than that, but yes.
And we have 5,500 households, so that's the issue. How do you get from 800 to 5,500? So there are techniques of direct mail and EDDM to make sure that nearly everybody in the city is getting Village View, and it needs to come out more often. It's not every week, it's every 2 or 3 weeks.
Yes.
It's sort of random, we never know when it's coming out. So it should be a weekly newsletter going to 5,500 households.
The Village View is put out the Friday before every council meeting.
Yes, okay. So I have to think, when is the council meeting? Is it Tuesday? So a weekly newsletter
it's on
is a
your
weekly
calendar.
newsletter, and you have a means of communication.
We know
Anyway,
it's on your calendar. Thank you all for the feedback. This is very useful, and we appreciate your time, and we take it to heart, all the comments and the feedback. We do take it to heart, so thank you very much. I now want to pass the baton or the remote over to our Assistant City Manager, Miguel Hernandez, and he will talk about our Human Resources Department.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Miguel Hernandez, the Assistant City Manager. Most of my time here with Sierra Madre has been with the Human Resources and Risk Management. I oversee the department now, along with Ruby Velasquez, who's our Human Resources Analyst, who handles a lot of our risk and workers' comp. We also have Lisette, who's in-house right now, Human Resources Administrative Analyst, who handles a lot of our recruitment and other benefit administration. So like IT, we're a behind-the-scenes department. We do a lot of the things, a lot of the staffing support structure. You had an opportunity to hear IT, administrative services, and in previous town hall meetings, you've had an opportunity to listen to public safety, library, and community services. So how do all these things get done? Well, it's staff. Staffing is what makes all of this happen. So that's where the Human Resources Department comes in. Like I said, we are the support structure of the organization. We assist employees with benefit administration questions, retirement questions, also FMLA, Family Medical Leave Act, protected leaves, and also potential discussions on potential reorganizations, staffing structure for each department. Every year we assess the needs of the department. We make changes that need to be changed, whether it's updating a position, renaming a position, adding or removing positions. So we do a lot of that, and that's all behind the scenes. One of the areas that the Human Resources Department is busy in and has been busy for the last 3 years is recruiting. Our recruiting efforts from 2020 were kind of on the average. COVID kind of slowed things down quite a bit, but we still had some activity happening. In 2021 and 2022 really started to get really busy in our recruitment. 2022 was really the busiest one, as you can see here. That's where we had a lot of really high level recruitments. We had city manager, we had police chief, librarian, as well as all the other positions that were vacant at the time. So what we do with our, so just to give a brief description of the process for recruiting, is a vacancy is identified. HR works with that department manager, to facilitate the process. We make the announcement, applications start coming in. The review of applications will then go into the interview process, and then we assist the department in the selection. Once the selection is made, now the HR department will take over with the onboarding process, get the employee ready and prepared to start their new position. And that can take some time. With certain recruitments, it can take a month, 2 months, and our public safety can take, sometimes 3 months, because there's an extensive background that has to be conducted for those positions. So these things can take a little bit of time, the resources, but we do what we can with the limited resources that we have. So what are the challenges that we face? Right now, currently the city has 89 full-time employees and 37 part-time. What are the challenges that we face in the recruiting? Is retention. Here you'll see the retention percentages that we've had in the last 3 years. Our average retention runs around 10% each year. The year 2022 was our biggest and busiest time, as I mentioned, with recruitment. But our average runs around 10%. And but retention, what does that mean? People leave here to go work somewhere that's closer to home. Also, salaries. The salaries can be also a huge factor as to why employees will leave for higher salaries at other agencies, whether it's the public sector or the private sector. So those are the challenges we face, and with the support of council and working with council to get salaries closer to market so that we are competitive in recruiting talent, but most importantly is retaining that talent. We have a lot of employees here that have been here for quite a few years, which is great, but we're starting to see a trend of the younger generation, they're here and then they leave. And oftentimes is for various reasons. Those are money and also closer to home. So with the support of council and working with them, we're looking at ways that we could make our salaries much more competitive so that we can retain the talent that we have. And we have a lot of talented employees here working in each department. So how do we, now that we have employees, how do we keep them motivated? How do we keep them engaged? So employee engagement is one of the important things here. And that's by having simple and events that engage the employees, that keep them motivated, that we appreciate them. We have a employee appreciation week where we have different events and lunch and so forth. We have a mayor's luncheon or a mayor's breakfast, depending on what the timing on that is. We also have a holiday luncheon. And the employee wellness, which this last year we had a step challenge, and quite a few employees participated in that, and it was motivating. People were out walking, and so it was, and it brought the team together. So those are the things that we can do to engage employees, to keep them motivated, to keep them wanting to stay here, and those are the simple things that we do. The appreciation of our staff, it goes a long way. The other component of HR is the risk management. The city has a risk management section that handles our workers' comp, and without getting into too much detail in our workers' comp, we do have to facilitate injuries when injuries occur, and so as you can see here, COVID was really one of our biggest numbers of claims that we received in 2021. And that drove up our experience level in terms of claims. Without COVID, our claims are pretty minimal. We currently have 8 claims, which 3 are open. And again, how do we mitigate our workers' comp, and that's through safety training, and that's through awareness, operations, and when we get a new vehicle or when we get new tools that we need to learn, all of that, the awareness of that helps with reducing the injuries. The other side of the risk management is the liability. Now, liability insurance is really the where we get a lot of claims from city property causing damage to private property. For example, as you can see here, our tree branches have become our biggest claims that we receive. The city, we have a lot of trees in the city. We love our trees. And a big part of that is maintaining the trees so that we could mitigate the risk, and so we wouldn't have to deal with so many claims on that. 5 claims is a lot, and so the trees that we have in town, we have a great program in maintaining them, but we also rely on you, the residents. So if you see a tree limb or a tree that's not healthy, give us a call. We'll go out and address those issues. And same thing with roads. If you see potholes, now with the recent rains, it's created a lot of potholes. Our staff, we're out there, or whether from our fire, police, and our public works, if they see something, they're going to address the issue, but we can't always see those things. So we rely on you, the residents, to provide that information to us and give us a call so that we can get our public works department out there to address that issue, whether it's by putting a barrier, a cone or something to let people know while we get the issue fixed. Other areas of liability are, just roads, uneven roads, or where there's construction, sewer, sidewalks, all those things can create claims, but trees are really the biggest claims that we see year after year. And finally, before we go into these questions, are there any questions that you have for me? Yes?
I'll do without the mic.
Okay, that's fine. Oh.
All right, I'll give it a shot. All right. As far as city liability for trees, is there a budget that the city has to work within the confines on an annual basis? I ask that because I have a tree in front of my house on city property. I've been calling for a dozen times already. Okay. And unfortunately, you get ping pong back and forth between Edison and I think it's Utility Tree Service who works with Edison. Mm-hmm. I mean, a dozen times this tree is it's pushing our service line. It could lead to a fire, the storms that we've had, the winds. It's going to happen, and I've raised my hand multiple times, and the phone call isn't getting it done. Okay. So is this a city budget issue? It seems like you're trying to punt it to Edison.
It can be a city budget. We do have a program that we try to maintain all of our trees, and when we do get phone calls, there is a list of trees that could be potential issues. Yeah. Our Public Works Department will go out and take a look, assess the issue, the concern, work with Edison, and try to address that issue as quick as we can, depending on the assessment that is made. And sometimes in cases like that, we work with our arborist to determine if that tree needs to be removed altogether or trimmed significantly. But yes, we do have a tree program, and yeah, we do our best to get to everybody as quick as we can to address the concern. But we will, we can check and see where we are with your concern. I'll let James answer that question.
Sure, thank you. I manage a tree program in town. A budget of about $65,000. Your power lateral is insulated or it's not energized. So that is why we would. Yeah. Okay, go. Sorry about that. I'll just start real quick. $65,000 a year is our annual budget for the town with over 6,000 public trees. When we get the complaint about trees interacting with service laterals, they are low priority. Service laterals are either not energized or they're insulated. A lot of times we'll refer that to the resident to contact the utility to see if they feel like it's a danger. So that's a short answer. I'll give you my card before you go.
Thank you for the question. Are there any other questions? Okay. So a couple of the questions we have here, if there's any interest in working or volunteering with the City of Sierra Madre, or you know of someone that does, just to add to that, we do have an intern program. So if there are kids, high school kids that are just graduating, or first year, second year college students, have them call us. So that if you have anyone that would be interested in working in the city government. Also, question number 2, taking into account that all liability claims are paid out with taxpayer funds, what is your biggest concern with risk liability within the city? And if there's any concerns, you can ask a question and we'll, yes.
I think my number one concern is in Kirsten Court, that step down. Several people have tripped and fallen on that. So are you doing anything besides painting a yellow stripe? Do you know which?
I do. It's the north part of the Kirsten Court, the steps that are on there. Yeah, I know the yellow paint has been placed there, so that it identifies that there are steps. We are looking at other things that we can do to prevent that from happening. Maybe lighting. I'm not sure, what time of day that is happening, but we have received notifications on that, and I know that we're looking into things that we can do to address those issues, those concerns. Yes.
My question is about the yellow plastic appliques they have for the emergency, or not emergency, but for like wheelchair or stroller access onto sidewalks, and they're very difficult to use. In rainy, wet weather, it's a lot of slippage, and then they put bumps on them, which makes it even more difficult if you're helping somebody with a wheelchair or a walker or using a stroller. They're very difficult to access. They used to just put lines in the cement, and then so it was very non-skid. So it's much easier to access. So I'm wondering if there's any thought or work in that regard to make these things more non-slip, because they're very difficult, because when they have applied these plastic appliques. I hope you know that.
I do. Yeah, and thank you for that question. I will have James Carlson answer that question as well.
James, repeat the question.
Yeah, and I'm sure nobody's really was able to hear her very well, and I'm giving up on the mic, so please be as loud as you can. The wonderful lady was talking about the yellow strips that are typically found on like curb ramps and transitions from a street to a sidewalk. That is the current American with Disabilities Act specification. They are designed to be non-slip. The bumps are designed to help blind people know where those transitions are at.
Yes.
A couple of things, with all the recent precipitation, I do notice that the painted crosswalks, I know they put garnet to provide a higher traction coefficient surface, but they're actually super slippery. There's parts of it where you step on the paint, it's like ice. So that seems like a potential liability concern for the city. The other one is in relation to some representations that have been made of an ongoing issue, and I'm only bringing this up. This is not in any way opining one way or another for the larger issue at hand. My understanding is city has taken on face value a promise of 50 years of water for a specific development within the city boundaries. And again, I have absolutely no place whatsoever. I've got my own things, I've got my own fires and everything, but I do like to have honesty and transparency. And in context to potential liability, my question is, I've done 5, 6, 7 months of research on this issue of how anybody can promise that there's a water in our region. And I've spoken to some of the most preeminent hydrologists in the western United States. And I've yet to discover not even a shred of evidence to support this idea that you can make such a promise. And my concern toward liability for the city is taking this kind of blatantly, obviously false promise at face value. Does that not open us up to some form of liability and culpability when the X hits the fan? And this promise is obviously proven to be a hit in the sand. And this is not, again, a reflection on the rights or wrongs of any aspect of the issue. I expressly refuse to take a position on that. I'm just arguing a point, a fact, purely objective data point. I can't find any data support 50-year promise of guarantee of water and how we can fulfill that within the city. How would we do that?
I really appreciate your question and your passion, and I'd be happy, again, take your information, and I think it's a conversation that you and I can have.
Well, thank you all for your questions, and I'll turn it over to our next presenter.
So before we transition, we're kind of at about 3/4 point here, or about 2/3 through the presentations, and I want to just take a second to help frame things a little bit on some of the conversations we're having tonight. So as we said at the introduction, this is part of our effort on a longer-term strategic plan. And coming out of a session that we had in June of last year, and coming out of that, we've got a draft strategic plan that focuses on 5 main areas, 5 main focus areas of the city: public safety, infrastructure, community enrichment, environmental responsibility, and organizational sustainability. And tonight, and we've had sessions on public safety, we've had some on community enrichment, we'll have one on infrastructure, and so tonight we're really focusing on the organizational sustainability. And we've got some draft strategic objectives I'd like to share with everybody to help kind of frame the conversation going forward and how this will help. What we're looking at here is we're getting some baseline information for everybody of what's going on in the city, and it'll help frame these strategic objectives. So in our community enrichment strategic objective, what we've drafted right now is to promote an unparalleled quality of life with an engaged and collaborative culture. For our strategic objective around environmental responsibility is to be a regional leader in sound stewardship of water, power, and natural resources. And then in organizational sustainability is to build an organization that is innovative, financially stable, and consistently delivers a high level of service. And so as you're listening to these presentations tonight, think about those strategic objectives and how what we are delivering for you as residents, how it fits into that, and how we can meet those strategic objectives going forward. So hopefully that helps a little bit in some of the dialogue. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Finance Director Hilary Garola-Leon to talk about the Finance Department.
Hi everyone, good evening. My name is Hilary Garola-Leon and I am in the Finance Department. We have a team of 5. We currently have 1 vacancy, but we have our Finance and Budget Manager, Satnam Ray, she's over there. And we have our Senior Accountant, Selena Yang, and Accountant Technician, William Zaragoza. So first, I want to provide a big picture budget overview, our current budget. We have total revenues of 31.7 million and total expenditures of 33.9 million. And we have various funds, as we can see in this table, and each specific fund is used for specific purposes and expenditures. In the finance department, we have various components, and they all revolve around the goal of providing fiscal accountability and transparency of government funds. So we do start the year with an approved budget that provides us with a guide of available funding and the allowable expenditures we will make during the year. And in city operations, we have proper procedures in place. Before any payment is made, we make sure there's proper bids, quotes, and approval levels. And we also have grant management. In grants, it's important to keep records and track everything that has been spent in order to keep the grant funding, and in case it gets audited at a future date. So we make sure we have all that documentation and accounting ready. Our budget is monitored each month to determine if we're trending within budget, if any area we're gonna go over, or any change in operations that happen throughout the year. And we are able to monitor it every month in order to make sure that we propose any adjustments where necessary. And lastly, we issue a financial report at the end of the year, and that report shows what happened during the year. So any activity that happened during the year, and it gets audited by an independent third-party auditor. And in finance, it's necessary to have a long-term vision and budget sustainability. And the city has continued to monitor our pension obligations by doing additional prepayments, and we can see in the graph our funded status has increased. We were at 74%, and now we're at about 85%. And we do have an adopted policy that helps us keep looking at these pension obligations each year, make sure we monitor them, and we have a minimum funded status of 85% right now, and we are currently at that ratio. And we will continue to monitor it each year because these liabilities change every year because a lot of assumptions go into the valuation. Another item that's important to look at long-term is capital projects. So we do have a 5-year capital project, and that gives us a perspective of the citywide needs in the next 5 years. And lastly, all of your input is helpful and important in the development of the city's strategic goals, because those strategic goals will be used during the budget process in order to help us prioritize between demanding needs in the organization. So GFOA is the National Government Finance Association, and they have awards that they provide to governments that go above and beyond the minimum reporting requirements. And this is also evidence of financial transparency and full disclosure. So I'm pleased to announce that the City of Sierra Madre has continued to be recognized for these both awards. And one of them is for financial reporting. So that's the report at the end of the year and what happened during the year. And then budget award. So we also have received those awards. And in my role as finance director, it's my top priority to keep getting recognized because for the city and to continue these recognitions nationwide. Oh, I did miss one. So we have also received clean audit opinions. So that audit report that gets issued at the end of the year, it gets audited by our auditors, and every year it's been a clean audit opinion. So they review our records, make sure how we're doing, and our internal controls. Do we have proper internal controls in place for government spending? And we have had clean audit opinions. So some questions that we have for this part of the section is, are there any city programs or services that you would like to see funded? And that's my first question. Yeah. Do we have a?
No, we're not using the mic.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Okay, so David Gordon, I'm the president of the Sierra Madre Playhouse. And if you go past the Sierra Madre Playhouse this evening, you will see two portaloos because we have no water in the building because our 70-year-old pipes have broken. It's going to cost us a hell of a lot of money to fix up. We're one of several historic buildings in the city that are in need of repair. The Women's Club being one, and some buildings which are actually owned by the city, Liz's Inn and Brixton House and others. I think it's tremendously important that the city create a program to help those people who are responsible for the historic buildings that give the city so much character so that we can afford to renovate them. Under the Mills Act, individuals who have homes can apply to the city to be exempt from taxes if they spend money on refurbishing their homes. There's nothing like that for not-for-profits and for historic buildings that are not residential. So I strongly urge the city to create a program which will restore these historic buildings which add so much to the character of Sierra Madre.
Okay, yes. Thank you for that comment. I will make note of it to discuss with the city, with the team, and do further research in that. Anybody else? Yes, sir?
What's the primary source of money for our budget?
So the primary source for our budget is property taxes. That makes up like 57%.
After that, what is
After that is a UUT tax, utility users tax.
And how much does that go up every year? Property tax is pretty stable, or does it increase?
Yes, it is pretty stable because it's maxed out at a certain amount, so in order to be stable. And UUT is 10% of tax on the bills, utility bills.
Turnover, property tax revenue should increase, right?
Yes, when that does happen, it's based on the new market value, and that's when we can see an increase when the property transfers.
So is it going up?
Yeah, we do see an increase each year, so we're working on projections for the next budget as well. Yes?
So I'm looking at your budget, it looks like we're spending more than we're taking in.
So good question. And that one is because special revenue funds is grant funds. So we can see that special revenue funds is 3.5, and then the expenditures is 4.2. So for that one, it's because the timing of the grants, right? So we spend it first, and then we receive the reimbursement. So it can be timing of so we look at each fund individually on how we're doing. Yeah.
How do we rank in terms of, aside from property taxes, procuring money or grants from the state or other organizations? Do we do pretty well?
To receive grants?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have increased in receiving grants. I know for public safety, there's some grants we've been receiving for programs. One of them was the smart. Yes, fire hazard and fuel reduction. And we also have received, as our deputy city manager mentioned, the grant from the San Gabriel Valley Water District for to help residents for their bills. So we do continue.
Let me follow up on a question on that is how do we look from a financial stability perspective compared to other cities?
Yeah.
Stability perspective?
Yes. We've been compared to other cities, and you know, what are some of our liabilities compared to our revenue, and where do we rank for similar sized cities or in cities in the state of California? Because we had a report on that recently, within the last year, I think.
Yes, we did have a report, and we did rank higher than, we rank low risk than other neighboring cities. And a lot of that is they look at our revenues and expenditures, how are we doing to sustainability long term. And pension obligations is one of the items that they also look at. So how are we funding the obligations? And a lot of cities have like a bond that they're using to fund, and we don't have a bond. Luckily, we have been proactive in having a funded policy in place and monitoring each year and doing additional prepayments to manage our obligations.
We're in like the top third of cities in the state or something like that. It's pretty impressive.
So on your second question, wouldn't it be true to say that we have no concerns about the city's current financial status? We are, in fact, one of the strongest municipalities from a financial point of view in the state of California.
Yes, we are good in the fiscal responsibility and accountability. So the only is looking at long-term, right, priorities with capital projects, I think is one of them, and to continue to monitor our obligations that are, they change every year with the pension obligations. They're very volatile. So, but yes, it's that we have our goals, which is to implement strategic goals in the budget process, prioritizing and looking at the capital projects that we have in place.
But I think one of the things that we have to continue to consider is that because we have an all-professional public service, both police and fire, that maintaining that is something that we have to continue to fund going forward, and something that is, it may end up being a challenge going forward. You know, as we said, one of the strategic things is to maintain the service, and one of the ways we maintain service is to be able to maintain a workforce. And one of the things that's great about working in the city of Sierra Madre is that it's got that small town community feel, it's got that collaborative feel. The disadvantage of working in the city of Sierra Madre is we don't pay top dollar, right? You get a chance to do a whole lot more. You get a chance, as I always like to say, to punch above your weight, to get involved in county and state task forces and all of that, but the pay is not there. That is something we're gonna have to continue to address going forward. It's going to be a continuing challenge as we go to maintain that motivated and top-notch service that we've got here in the city.
Okay, but what is there in the strategic plan to address that strategic question? We have now professional fire service, professional police force, so we are in the hands of two of the strongest unions who are going to push for and get increases in salaries over the next year.
So the strategic objective for that specific thing falls under the category of organizational stability. And under that organizational stability section, the strategic objective is to build an organization that is innovative, financially stable, and consistently delivers a high level of service. And as this strategic plan is being developed and fleshed out, there will be strategies under each of those strategic objectives, and that's what's being worked on right now. And so it would be helpful, and this is a great dialogue here, are what are some of those, if we're thinking about that as a strategic objective, what are the strategies we need to have to meet that strategic objective, and then from those strategies, we'll have actions related to that strategy. So it'll all flow down from that.
I think I could speak to one of the strategies, at least voice of the people, and we're wondering if there's a budget allocation and timeline for bringing back the horn.
For what?
Bringing back the horn.
The horn.
The voice of the people.
Voice of the people.
Who wants to be heard.
Okay. That's what this is about. This meeting here is the voice of the people. That's why we're having the town hall tonight. This is why we have the opportunity to speak at public meetings. We've got, I mean, that's our way of getting the public input.
Yeah, but the big issue here is that we don't have a commercial sector in the city to tax. We're know that the cost of public services is going to go up. We don't have the tax base, so what is the tax strategy to deal with it? And that's what we need to discuss for the strategic plan. Do we need to have a public service tax? That's the great unsaid thing that has not been discussed. And it needs to be discussed. We need to be quite honest with ourselves. That in Sierra Madre, we're going to raise the salaries of the staff and get the best people in the table and have this professional public service thing. We're undertaxed to do so, I think.
That's right.
In spite of our stability. And that's what we have to discuss strategically. And this whole evening has been very illuminating to know how each city department works. But nobody has been addressing these strategic issues. So it's rather a frustrating evening because we have become much more better educated about how each department works. But has not led to each department head saying, these are my strategic issues, and I can do with some input from you to help me pick them up. So I'm rather frustrated. I'm very glad we're having this meeting, but I think we need to have others which deal with strategic issues, not tactical issues.
I appreciate that feedback, and I think, and we will take it back and take it under advisement and discuss it on next steps coming forward. But believe me, Mr. Gordon, you have been heard on this, and it is much appreciated.
You know,
Sorry, I
let me
didn't
just say
mean
that that's not unique to Sierra Madre, you know. It happens at the state level, it happens at the national level, you know. It's kicking the can down the road. So you're not the only one that's guilty.
We have another question in the back.
Yes, it's a question and a comment at the same time. One of my primary concerns is crime prevention. I don't think we've heard as yet, I don't know if you're going to later on, discuss crime prevention for the city of Sierra Madre, but we have been inundated with all kinds of different crimes. We've seen a tremendous rise in crime since we've lived here. My husband was raised here. I've been here for over 40 years myself. But we've seen a tremendous rise in crime in the residential district. And that is one of my most primary concerns is crime prevention, all kinds of crime. And whether it's property damage, personal damages, electronic damages to us, modern technology has outstepped, we think, the law communities and a lot of our current laws about modern technology, whether it's beneficial or harmful to us. And we would like to see our city police department enlarged. We heard earlier that there's plans. We didn't get to know about them earlier, but we're very grateful and happy to hear that our police department has plans to be enlarged. And we hope that they can have more black and white police cars to be able to patrol residential areas of the town. And we hope that we could get a much better telephone system so that we could make, if we call the police department, we could actually make a real police report that could be recorded to the police department without interruptions, because what we've noted is that at the current status, they've asked the officer of the desk to do about 5 or 6 other people's jobs, is how we have witnessed it. And we don't think, of course, that's very feasible or fair to the officer of the desk. And we don't get to make the proper police reports we would really like to and need to be able to make. The other system they've used is to send police officers to our neighborhood to talk to us personally, and we have to go outside, whether it's raining or cold or sunny or hot, to tell the police officers what has gone on. Now, unfortunately, I've had some unfortunate experiences that way. I did have one officer that tried to raise the revolver out of his scabbard, which was a very frightening and scary experience. So we have wanted to know recommendations, perhaps some discussion on how to improve police department relationships with the community members, whether we're women or whether we're men or boys or girls, so that we can know that we can depend upon our police department for adequate services and the adequate help that we need. We've incurred a lot of property damage to our place, and it's just we don't know why. We really don't know why. We try to mind our own business and just not bother other folks. But we have reported the problems over the years, and it increases. We've also experienced a lot of personal tied to assaults by modern technology, and some of the modern technology has become overwhelming, we think, even to gravity, which I have tried to discuss, but probably needs to be discussed in further conversation to explain exactly what we've experienced. But we do know that people have been able to purchase or obtain modern technology that is no longer beneficial or helpful in any way. It was definitely made to be detrimental, such as types of weaponry. It's almost weaponry in its nature. So we would like to at least have some conversation and further help and assistance in knowing what we can do about these circumstances, and if we can get grants or grant writing or anything that would improve the circumstances that we've been experiencing and the rise of crime that we've been experiencing.
So thank you for that comment. I'll jump in here on that. So we did have a public safety town hall in January to discuss this specifically. The chief is here in the back, and I'm going to ask him to get your contact information to follow up in more detail. The good news is if you watch Tuesday night's meeting, we had an update on the public safety from the police department at the meeting and the current statistics. But we can also to look at the items specifically. Some of the things I did hear you say, increasing police presence, that is something that the chief is actively working on. We're working on getting more cops out of the cars and on the feet, on foot traffic and on bike traffic throughout the city. And then he can go into the detail on a lot of the crime statistics and the things that we're doing within the city. There was one of the things that came out of the town hall was increasing license plate cameras, so being able to catch people coming into and out of the city. So all it does is capture the license plate information, so that if there is a crime that's committed, we have a much better idea of being able to capture someone that's coming into our town and committing a crime. But the chief can give a whole lot more detail on that than I can, and we can make sure that we incorporate that in our thoughts going forward.
Thank you. The other thing I would like to know about is we used to have an officer that did code enforcement. The officer had their own car, and they wore a policeman's type of uniform. They had radios, I believe it was, but they did do active code enforcement. They didn't have the lettering on the car that we wish they would have had that said City Code Enforcement, but they did have their own car, and they were very helpful in assisting us with some of the troubles that we have in regard to that I've spoken of before. And I wondered what status that if there's a code enforcement officer currently employed, or
We do have a parking enforcement officer service that is employed in the city. Beyond that, I think we can have the chief talk with you about other specific codes and how they're being enforced in the city, and the details of the current status. And we're fortunate with a brand new police chief, and he's bringing a lot of great and innovative ideas to the city right now on how to do things better. And this is the perfect time to give him that feedback.
Okay, is there any other questions? All right, so Now I'll turn it over to Vincent, our planning director.
Good evening. So my name is Vince Gonzalez, Director of Planning and Community Preservation, and I have been working in this capacity for the past 8 years, and we operate with 6 full-time staff and 5 consultants. The planning responsibilities include customer consultation at the public counter and issuance of building permits. We also implement the development standards of the zoning code. We perform advanced planning functions such as the general plan amendments and municipal code text amendments. We administer the historic preservation program, which has been mentioned this evening, both historic designations as well as Mills Act compliance. We process subdivisions such as the Stonegate development project at the top of Baldwin Avenue, and also in compliance with the Subdivision Map Act. We serve as lead agency for environmental impact reports, including hosting EIR scoping sessions and workshops. And also we are the staff liaison to the Planning Commission, made up of 5 members. Code enforcement responsibilities was mentioned this evening as well. We do have a code enforcement officer, Greg Silva, and his responsibilities include enforcement of business licensing as well as enforcement of business permit requirements, abating nuisance properties, and administering the vacant property registration ordinance. We also operate the Building and Safety Department. It consists of 5 consultants through Wildan Engineering. It includes a building official, a plans examiner, a building inspector, and a fire marshal. And we also have an independent plan check structural engineer. So one of the more significant projects that we've worked on took about 2+ years. Another advanced planning project was the completion of the 6th cycle housing element. We were the 10th in the state to receive certification out of 89 cities in Los Angeles County, and still 46 cities remain out of compliance. Claire Lynn, senior planner, who's in the room this evening, was the project manager for this operation, and as I said, it took 2+ years. She also received 2 grants to help pay for consultant services, an SB2 grant and a LEAP grant, totaling $225,000. We began the program during COVID-19 restrictions. So the meetings with our planning consultant, our housing consultants, were performed during COVID, and we were performing our meetings using Zoom to come up with various housing programs. As you can see at the top of the slide is a chart. That's the allocation that was given to the city from Housing and Community Development in collaboration with the Southern California Association of Governments. And basically that chart identifies the number of units that the city needs to provide during this next cycle from 2021 to 2029, housing element cycle, to be able to identify and provide our fair share of housing opportunities at various affordability levels from very low, moderate, and above moderate income units. And one of the unique programs that the department came up with our housing consultant was the creation of a utilization of underutilized properties on religious sites. And it's called or referred to as the housing opportunities on congregational land. And the massing model that you see depicted on the slide is a depiction of 24 affordable units, and it's located in the underutilized portion of the United Methodist Church. We also continue to process a number of applications, and we've completed a number of them in fiscal year 21-2022, including 3 homes at the Stonegate development, 20 accessory dwelling units, a couple of commercial projects, and one that will be coming back to the Planning Commission soon, and also a multifamily project consisting of 5 units. It's an apartment building, and we were able to negotiate with the property owner to secure 1 moderate income rental unit. Currently, the department is managing 115 projects from pre-development application review all the way through construction. And basically, these charts are showing the comparison between fiscal year 2021 and 21-22, the one on the bottom. And it's basically identifying all of the permit and entitlements that we processed within the city. In sum total, it's not per individual entitlement. Just to give you an example, on the chart on the top left of the screen, it identifies the number of building permits issued as 805. We also respond to state mandates, preparing municipal code text amendments. And in the 2022 legislative session, there were 2,020 housing bills introduced. And of those, 997 of those were signed into law, 169 were vetoed by the governor, and all of these bills the intent was to foster affordable housing production. So that created new regulations that each jurisdiction in California had to respond to by January 1st of each year to respond with municipal code text amendments to be in compliance with the state requirements. Some of these included the accessory dwelling units, reducing regulations to encourage further development, reduced parking requirements, actually reducing or incentivizing density bonus opportunities for developers to receive additional waivers and concessions for development. It also they limit the number of public hearings that we're able to hold with the residents of our communities. And essentially what a lot of the bills did in this 2022 cycle is to eliminate the single-family zone statewide. And the intent really is to increase density throughout the state. And a lot of the bills that did fail or were vetoed will be, again, brought back to the legislative session in 2023 for consideration by the governor. Looking forward, the department is attempting to streamline and come up with new solutions to streamline the ADU process to allow opportunities to make it a lot simpler and easier and quicker. So one of the other programs that Claire Lynn participated in with the San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments is to create a request for proposal to enlist architects to prepare pre-approved designs and construction documents for accessory dwelling units. So this is another application that we're hoping to release in this coming fiscal year. And ADUs, as I mentioned, are quite popular. We actually processed 20 last year, and to date right now, in this current fiscal year, we've received 23 applications, and those are going through our process. So that's one of the things that we're trying to do, is to streamline the ADU process to make it quicker. Another thing that we're also looking forward to establishing is an electronic plan review and permitting platform for the city. So currently staff is conducting interviews with a number of companies that provide these services. And as you can see in the exhibit here, that's an actual shot of one of our bins that holds our construction documents. And what we'll eventually do is migrate to an electronic platform, so that becomes a thing of the past. And what the benefits would be heading towards this direction is, again, faster turnaround times for review as well as parallel plan reviews. So currently, what occurs is that one of those plans will be reviewed by a planning staff member. We put it in another bin, it goes to Public Works and structural review and fire. So now with an electronic permitting platform, we'll be able to do parallel plan reviews. All those entities are able to open up the file, review it independently. And also the applicant will be able to track the project status and see which one has been completed. And we are also making the same effort to streamline the solar permitting process. Again, it's also another popular program. We've received 86 solar permits last fiscal year, which was quite a bit. Also, Claire Lynn participated with the California Energy Commission, and we were awarded a $40,000 grant through the commission. And the use of that grant is to assist local jurisdictions to employ an automated permitting system. Before we go into any questions, I did want to acknowledge Josh Wolf. He's the associate planner in the department, and he has been nominated for Employee of the Year award. So I just wanted to make that announcement. And I have 3 questions here. I'm going to read each one, one after the other, and then we can go and head it up and open it up to questions. First one, are there any specific planning projects that you believe would have a significant positive impact in our city's overall livability? And one of the examples I would use would be the refurbishment of Kirstein Court as a public space center that creates a social activity. The next question is, what types of community preservation initiatives are you most interested in seeing implemented in the city? One of the things that I was thinking about would be preservation of open space, or looking at some of our historic sites, or the creation of affordable housing. And the final question is, are there any specific policies or initiatives that the Planning and Community Preservation Department should prioritize in order to address the climate crisis? Again, there are many examples that we talked about here, one of them being solar and water use, but also electrification could be another goal for the city for new construction. So with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Specific to the streamlining and expedited processes for certain approvals, there's the DOE Solar App Plus Plus expedited process. Very, very, very low barriers to entry, sort of a no-brainer kind of thing. What's the timeline for actually having that in place for us? And then the other thing is, one of the big issues that we have in reference to specific to energy, batteries, solar, alternative energy, is specific code set applications and what generation that we're working on. City of Sierra Madre right now, like Pasadena, is working on 2017 NEC, and any changes of what code set that we apply has huge changes to viability for certain projects, and how we would approach, or how we're able to actually execute or fulfill given projects. So 2 things, yeah, sort of making sure that we have a smooth process for getting things approved. Solar App Plus Plus. Secondly, a transparent process for letting us know in advance if we're going to move beyond the current code set. And is there, is there a formal process for when we make that change, if we make that change? And I'm assuming, obviously, eventually we're going to make a change in terms of National Electrical Code, code cycle enforcement. How would you communicate that? What's the process for the city?
So So the first thing you mentioned was regarding the solar app. This is something that we are moving towards. That was the $40,000 grant that we got for assistance to implement that program. So in terms of its timeline, we are looking at implementation this coming fiscal year, beginning in July. A lot of these projects that I mentioned, looking forward, will be enacted through the into the next fiscal year. Regarding the International Building Code and some of the standards that have been implemented, we are in our new code cycle. So we are current with that, and in terms of notification to the public when these changes occur, we just went through in January through City Council approval and adoption of those new codes, including the fire code. Excuse me?
When does that come into effect? Because my understanding is currently
It is in effect now. It is in effect now. 2017, it's 2020 is in effect right now.
2020.
Yeah. Just prior to the new adoption, it was 2017. It updates every 3 years.
Okay, so we're now in 2020.
Yes.
Is there a plan to improve the sidewalks in Sierra Madre?
There actually is a plan to improve the sidewalks in Sierra Madre.
Yes, there certainly is. We've adopted a 4-year plan. We've divided the city into 3 segments. We've inventoried the entire city. The goal is to get one of the 3 segments each year, and then the 4th year we go back and do the inventory again. Right now we have a contractor doing spot repairs. You might see them, they're pretty interesting. They have a dolly, and they're actually on their hands and knees as opposed to heavy equipment, and they're grinding out the deflections and things that they see.
Yes. Okay.
With all the building and the housing projects that are mentioned, are there any traffic calming measures in the pipeline, any traffic mitigation efforts? Sierra Madre is a small city, but you've got a lot more cars driving a lot faster nowadays.
A number of points to that. Thanks for bringing that up. One of the things that was really exciting this year is we were awarded a program from UC Berkeley called Safe Trek. And that's where the students come down. They pick the city of Sierra Madre as their case. So this is free to us, and it's wonderful to work with their traffic engineers and their students. In fact, we're going to walk the city in, I think, 2 weeks with all of the people. That is really focused on pedestrian safety, bicycle safety, and other non-vehicular type of safety. Vincent here can talk about the circulation element that is contained within the general plan. Our police department is also compiling traffic data and accident data for use in studying some of our traffic planning going forward. So that's where we're at right now. I think that covers it. Was there any other question that you had? Yeah, it's exciting to be able to work with students and be a case study, and I'm really happy they picked Sierra Madre for it.
We actually used our circulation study, and we're in the process of putting in a stop sign at Mountain Trail, Orange Grove, and San Carlos, that crossover there. So it is something that we're looking at, and it's going to be looking at more broadly across the city.
Yeah, to follow up with what you mentioned, have you talked about the intersection at First and Court? Because the pedestrians are really polite to those driving the cars, and the people driving the cars are crowding the pedestrians at your busier hours, almost as though we don't want to do a stoplight. I hate to say a crossing guard, but if people, they're just not really polite at that intersection with each other.
We'll just take that. Yeah. I'll take it under advisement. Thank you.
Can I ask you one more question?
Sure.
Sorry. With all the building in Sierra Madre, has there been a study with Sierra Madre was built a long time ago, how many people the city can actually handle in terms of the infrastructure, the streets, the size of the streets, parking? Because all of your growth is slightly concerning to me. As I grew up here, it's changed a lot.
So that's predominantly the framework of our general plan, and all the supporting elements identifies what we would be able to be, what we would look like at build out. So there are studies in the general plan that do speak of that. And we are a fairly built out city. So we saw, the Meadows, there's a proposal there. There's 2 properties currently for sale at the Stone House, which would have supported 9 homes on 2 lots. And then there's a larger property that could support 11 properties. But after that, that's pretty much it in terms of open space that could be developable. Now, with all the state mandates, they're really not looking at that, and they're not pairing that up with even climate change. So they are just pushing densification, regardless of traffic and climate impacts.
So can you push back on your historical preservation and your preservation of open spaces, or that won't even negate what you have to do?
If you have open space like we do now, that won't be considered for development. Other sites, again, single-family homes, as I mentioned, is a thing of the past now in this state. To be developed. So there's an SB 9 is one of the programs that was passed by the state legislature. And basically what that allows a homeowner to do is to subdivide a property into 2 separate parcels. And each parcel would then be able to support 2 duplex units, or 2 units, so a total of 4 units. So that's one way they're trying to increase density. The one way we think is a positive for City of Sierra Madre is looking at accessory dwelling units as the opportunity to at least meet our RENA numbers, because we're able to count them as low-income units. Yes?
Right, just to put it in context also, the whole densification idea is that the denser the communities are, the less resources they use across the board, less water, less energy, less transport infrastructure. It's just a very difficult thing that we all have to deal with. There's no perfect solution to it. There's nothing where everybody's going to be happy, and inherently there's going to be change. And we have to reconcile with where we are.
Yes.
Yes, another thing I was wondering about in the area of crime prevention is about the schools here in Sierra Madre. So I was wondering about, we have an elementary school, and I believe we have the junior high school. We're wondering about the fencing projects around the schools and their marquees. We don't see their marquees are out there. Elementary school, we don't see their marquees in use. The last time we passed by there, we don't see fencing all around the schools. And I'm very concerned about the fencing for the safety of the children and, of course, the school staff. And we're concerned about a lot of things, because as far as we know, correct me if I'm not quoting this correctly, Pasadena Unified School District is still servicing Sierra Madre. Is that true?
That's correct. Pasadena Unified services both the elementary school and the middle school.
Well, it's concerning to me that they do not seem to have adequate fencing. And we know other unified school districts have made sure that they have 6, 8-foot fencing totally around the entire school to prevent any kind of unfortunate circumstances, which we find in the news, unfortunately, all the time, which we are greatly regret. even for those who have entered into law education and become lawyers. We have experienced ourselves as a passing unified school district and not stressed with audits. And children come out not being able to read very well, and they come out not being even interested in reading very well. We're very, very concerned about both issues, the safety issue and the programming issue. We're wondering if the city of Sierra Madre can be of assistance to parents and children and young adults or adults seeking a better quality of education.
Well, we'll certainly take many of your comments under advisement. I believe the city of Sierra Madre does have direct communication through the city manager's office with PUSD.
As we drove by many times, we would see children and teachers outside. I believe that's, I'm not sure what's east of my street, but there's one of the schools on the elementary school there. But we would see children and teachers conducting classes outside, and there was no fencing around any of their activities, because they were like in the front yard, so to speak, of the school. So we're very concerned about that. We think that would improve safety a great deal.
So as I mentioned, we'll take that under advisement through the city manager's office. Yes, Mr. Gordon.
I don't want to repeat myself, but I'd like to nod on this heading, the need for a program for refurbishment of historic buildings that are not residences. Just a point about densification. We all know the problem that there's a housing crisis in desirable parts of California. But California, for the first time in a century, lost population last year. Texas, in 1 year, gained 517,000 people. So California loses representation in the House of Representatives, and Texas gains it. So there are all kinds of reasons for greater densification. So if one can try to do something about the cost of housing, which is one of the reasons that people are looking at the state. So we can't afford this sort of NIMBYist attitude, but we can't possibly have another ADU dwelling in our street. We need to have slightly more densification in Sierra Madre than we've been known to do. Two very small suggestions. One is when we have historic designations, just have this label that says this building is in the historic register. It would be nice to have a slightly longer label that says why the building is important, who the architect was, something along those lines. Secondly, the quality of street furniture is one of those small things that make the place distinguished. We put up these new crossings with for public safety, which are very good, but the poles on which they are attached are the sort of cheapest things you can get from Walmart, and they disfigure the city. We need to have a high quality of street furniture.
Duly noted.
So I really want to thank everybody for spending their evening with us tonight. Really, city staff, city council began a strategic plan last year. One of the components that was missing was our residents' voice. Today, our goal was to open City Hall, give you all an overview of everything that we do here at City Hall. And then we wanted to take feedback from you on what we can do better. When you come into City Hall, what is it that you would like to see? Are there programs that are missing? I think we got a lot of really good feedback, a lot of really good information that now we have our citizens' input, and it'll help enhance and build on our strategic plan that we're working on. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Councilmember Parkhurst to take us home.
Yeah, I'll just echo what City Manager Reynoso said. And we will, the feedback we took tonight will be put into the strategic plan. It will come back to council later this year, and that'll be yet another place to be able to get feedback. We'll also discuss about how how we can build in some more of the feedback tonight, potentially in another step between now and the time it comes back to council. But again, thank you all very much for coming out tonight. Have a great evening, and we appreciate all your input. Thank you. Oh, we do have a raffle. Well, there we go.
She's getting it right now.
What are we raffling?
Let me.
This one and this one. This is the main item.
Shop local, a shop local bag.
Shop local?
Yeah.
So who are we turning it over to do the raffle? I'm going to do the raffle. Okay. So what do we have for this?
Prize is a shop local.
So we have two things, and then we're going to pull two things, right?
This is the grand prize. This
Got
is local gift cards supporting
Probability is like 1 in.
Got it. Okay. All right. So we've got two prizes tonight for you guys coming out. One of them here is a tote with a fabulous tote with the logo of the city of Sierra Madre, a water bottle, and looks like we've got another smaller tote inside of it. So for that one, we'll go ahead and pull out this ticket right here. David. Yes. All right. All right.
Enjoy that in good health, Mr. Gordon.
Thank you. All right. And then the second one we've got is a shop local a gift bag here, and it includes some gift certificates from Something Healthy, the newest store in town here, My Friend's Cafe, the Puff Monkey Culture Shop, and Nail Teak. So all very new businesses here in town. Let me go and grab something for that. All right, there we go. And this one to Nora, and Nora or Nova, and it's green. Is it green? Okay. She might have left. So, all right. All right. So then we'll go and grab another one in here. Here we go. This one here. This one doesn't have the name on it, but we have a number, and the last 4 digits are pick a different one. Okay, we'll do one that has a name on it. All right. Well, there we go. Here we go. Maureen Savo. All right. There we go. Again, thank you guys so much for coming out tonight. Thank you.